In 1858, a sweet maker in England caused a mass poisoning by accidentally adding a bag of arsenic to his sweet mix. This is the story of the Bradford sweets poisoning. Hi and welcome back to the Historical Crimes and Criminals podcast. I'm Steve, your host. Growing up in Glasgow in the 1970s and 80s, we children had a currency. On the route to school, we would all visit one of the newsagents conveniently dotted every half mile apart. Behind the counters, on the wall, stood jars and jars of different sweets. We would reach our grubby wee hands into our pockets for our school lunch money, and some of this money would go on a small mixed paper bag of sweeties, hard-boiled sweets such as cola cubes, rhubarb and custard, strawberries and cream, and a few dozen more, and we knew each and every one of them intimately. At school, and outside in the play parks, they could be traded for different sweets, for panini stickers, or to give to the cute girl you liked but were too shy to do anything other than bask in the warm glow of knowledge that you were sharing sweets from the same bag. And for those of you who want to know how that turned out, she didn't get any more sweets, as she kissed my friend the following weekend. Mankind's palate has always had a love of a sweet treat. There are cave drawings of early man depicting them taking honey from a beehive and dropping it into their mouths. The Egyptians, Chinese, and Indians would combine honey with nuts, and around this time licorice was discovered, although it'd be quite a while before we could stuff some all sorts into our gobs. The Romans had identified and used sugar as a sweetener, and by the Middle Ages it had become a status symbol in Europe, with the wealthy being able to show on their table such foodstuffs as candied or crystallised fruit. By the Victorian age, we see the development of sugar processing, and the sweet treats start to become mass-produced, and this opens the confectionery market to more and more people. Milk chocolate became available, and we saw the Fry's chocolate creams launched in 1853. It pretty much dominated the British market until Cadbury's burst onto the scene. John Cadbury had opened a Birmingham tea shop in 1824, selling tea, coffee and cocoa. John's son and family increased the business, and in 1905 they moved to the milk chocolate business, producing Cadbury's dairy milk bars. The population had a sweet tooth, and throughout the 20th century, we would see an explosion of our favourite chocolate bars from companies all over the world. And these are the British launch dates for some of our favourites. In 1910, we saw the Bournville plain chocolate bar. In 1915, Cadbury's Milk Tray. 1918, Peace Babies. Launched to celebrate the end of World War I, we now know them as Jelly Babies. In 1932, we saw Terry's All Gold, and also that perennial favourite, the Mars Bar. In 1933, Rowntree's Black Magic. 1935 saw a trio of favourites, the Milky Way, the Aero and the Kit Kat. And then the floodgates opened, 1936 saw Quality Street and Dairy Box. 37 saw Maltesers, Rolos and Smarties. World War II saw a halt to things, and it wouldn't be until 1951 we see the Bounty Bar. In 1958, the Galaxy. 1962, After Eights. In 1967, saw both the Twix and the Snickers bar, then called the Marathon. In the 1970s, would bring the Yorkie and the Double Decker. And for every chocolate or sweet that became a staple to this day, many were short-lived, such as the Skippy, the Roomba, Banjos, 54321s, and that bane of dentists all across the UK, Toffles, with their ability to remove even the most stubborn fillings. Such was the culture and appetite for sweets that it permeated to literature, with Roald Dahl's children's favourite, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, first published in 1964. But before processes became industrial, thriving cottage industries abounded all across the country, with making boiled sweets and selling them at markets. In 1858, William Hardacre was known to the locals as Humbug Billy, and he sold sweets from a stall in Greenmarket in central Bradford. Hardacre purchased his supplies from Joseph Neal, who made the sweets on Stone Street, a few hundred yards to the north of his market stall. The sweets in question were peppermint humbugs, made of peppermint oil, incorporated into a base of sugar and gum. However, sugar was expensive at 6.5 pennies per pound. Joseph Neal would substitute some powdered gypsum, or as we know it, plaster of Paris, that was only half-penny per pound. It was known as Daff, and that was added to some sugar. Gypsum had many uses, and the settlers of Nova Scotia and Canada even smuggled it into the American markets, and it resulted in the Plaster War. But the adulteration of foodstuffs with cheaper substances was common at the time, and the adulterers used obscure nicknames: Daff, Multum, Flash, Stuff, to hide the practice. Even more deadly were the poisons that were routinely added to sweets and other confectionery to make them look more colourful and attractive. Chromate of lead created a deep yellow but caused lead poisoning. The more times it was ingested, the more serious the results. Red sulphuret of mercury produced a bright orange-red hue, but was known to be a dangerous poison, while green sweets were usually coloured with copper acetate, which is a highly poisonous salt. The sweetmaker, Neil, sent James Archer, a lodger who lived at his house, to collect Daff for Hardacre's humbugs from druggist Charles Hodgson. Hodgson's pharmacy was 3 miles away in Shipley. Hodgson was at his pharmacy but did not serve Archer owing to illness, and so his requests were seen to by his young assistant, William Goddard. Goddard asked Hodgson where the Daff was, and was told it was in a cask in a corner of the attic. However, rather than Daff, Goddard sold Archer 12 pounds of arsenic. The arsenic trioxide is a white crystalline powder that closely resembles sugar. It has no odour or taste. The mistake remained undetected even during the manufacture of the sweets by James Appleton, an experienced sweetmaker employed by Neil, although Appleton did observe that the finished product looked different from the usual humbugs. Appleton started suffering symptoms of illness during the sweet-making process and was ill for several days afterwards, with vomiting and pain in his hands and arms, but did not realise it was caused by poison. £40 of the sweets were sold to Hardacre, who also noticed the sweets looked unusual, but simply used this to obtain a discount from Neil. Like Appleton, Hardacre, as one of the first to taste the sweets, also promptly became ill. But regardless, Hardacre sold £5 weight of the sweets from his market stall that night, reportedly at a price of 1.5 pennies for 57 grams. And so, over the course of that and the following day, of those who'd purchased and ate the sweets, 21 people died, with a further 200 or so becoming severely ill with arsenic poisoning within a day or so. Originally, the first deaths, those of 2 children, were thought to be owing to cholera. But the growing number of casualties soon showed that the purchase of lozenges from Hardacre's stall was the cause, and from there, the trail led to Neil and Hodgson. Hodgson's assistant, Goddard, was arrested and stood before magistrates at the court hall in Bradford on the 1st of November, with Hodgson and Neil later committed for trial with Goddard on a charge of manslaughter. Dr. John Bell identified arsenic as the cause, and it was confirmed by Felix Remington, a prominent chemist and druggist and analytical chemist. Remington estimated that each humbug contained between 910 and 970 milligrams of arsenic, with 290 milligrams being a lethal dose. Thus, each sweet would have contained enough arsenic to kill 2 people, and enough distributed by Hardacre in total to kill 2,000. The prosecution against Goddard and Neil was later withdrawn, and Hodgson was acquitted when the case was considered at York Assizes on the 21st of December 1858. A year later, in December 1859, 6 boys from a boarding school in Clifton, near Bristol, bought some Bath buns from the shop of a confectioner named Thr. Within half an hour of each eating them, they fell violently ill with a horrible sickness and other symptoms of irritant poison. The quick thinking of a doctor and using emetics to empty their stomachs meant that 5 of the boys soon recovered. But for one of the boys, the poisoning almost proved fatal. He had been greedier than the others and had eaten 3 of the buns. He remained writhing in agony for a number of hours and fell into a state of collapse. Luckily, he eventually recovered. The schoolboys were not the only people affected by this batch of Bath buns. A publican called May also bought some for him and his brother. They likewise suffered horrid tortures for 9 hours. When they got better, May complained to the magistrates, but as he'd not been poisoned outright, there was no case to answer. Had he died, a manslaughter case might have been brought. Preliminary investigations revealed that Thr regularly coloured the buns with chromate of lead without being aware of its dangers. At first, it was supposed that this time he had carelessly used far too much. However, when the buns were analysed by Dr. Frederick Griffin of the Bristol School of Chemistry, it was discovered that the colouring matter was, in fact, yellow sulphide of arsenic. It turned out that in this instance, the druggist had mistakenly supplied Thr with sulphide of arsenic, a much more deadly poison than the slower-acting chromate of lead. No action was taken against the confectioner or the druggist because the poisoning was accidental. Dr. Griffin wrote to the Times arguing that many of the obscure chronic and dyspeptic complaints now so prevalent are due to the systematic adulteration of articles of food with unwholesome or slowly poisonous materials. And this was probably also the reason for the large amount of adverts in Victorian newspapers offering indigestion remedies. In 1868, the Pharmacy Act was passed, after which only qualified pharmacists or druggists could sell poisons and dangerous drugs. Unfortunately, until 1875, there still remained very little control over the food and drink sold to the public. Although the first act of preventing the adulteration of articles of food or drink was passed in 1860, it had little effect. In 1872, an amended Adulteration of Food, Drink and Drugs Act came into force, which included the mandatory appointment of public analysts. A second select committee was set up and its findings formed the basis of the Sale of Food and Drugs Act 1875. Under this legislation, inspectors had the power to sample food and drugs and to test them for adulteration. There was a further amendment to the Act in 1879, followed by the Margarine Act 1887. It was followed by the Food Adulteration Act 1899. From the late 1880s and the early 1890s, there were an increasing number of prosecutions for food adulteration, as reported in the local and the national newspapers. And it was the beginning of the trade and standards legislations we take for granted today. Well, that's it for another episode of the Historical Crimes and Criminals podcast. I hope you enjoyed that one, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, and if you're on Apple, take time and please write a review. It really does help. And until next time, bye bye.